Now welcome to another lightning response video, where this time we're once again going to do a few questions here, and we will start it off with this one from Cedars22, who asked, Hey Thor, Star Wars is fundamentally a movie. This is something that I think most people miss, especially Disney. There is very little, if anything, Star Wars can gain by making a good TV show. The analogy might be a runner going for a swim in the same universe, but fundamentally different. However, Star Wars can be greatly hurt by a bad TV show, like Obi-Wan, something like that runner drowning on the swim. Why do you think nobody talks about Star Wars being, at its very core, a movie? If people could understand this, maybe it would start to get things back on track, pun intended, moving in the right direction again. And though I will agree with you that at the very heart of it all are, of course, the Star Wars movies, that what you would think most people would say is their favorite medium for Star Wars, their favorite type of Star Wars or way to consume it, are the movies. There are a lot of different avenues into the fandom that aren't the movies. For example, there are things like the Clone Wars animated series, which, as I've said before, there is an entire generation of fans who fell in love with Star Wars because of that. There have been countless amazing video games over the years that have probably turned people into Star Wars fans. There's the books and the comics, which probably isn't the most popular way to become a Star Wars fan. I think the people who tend to read Star Wars were fans first, but I'm sure there are examples of people picking up a book, reading it, and falling in love with the franchise, and now here they are fans. And so I certainly think Star Wars can be many different things. It doesn't just have to be a movie, though that's not even exactly what you're arguing here. You're kind of saying, what good do the live action shows do? Or are they potentially doing more harm than good? And with the benefit of hindsight, I would say yes. But going into it, going back 6 years now before Disney Plus launched, do I think I would have thought Star Wars shows would be a bad idea? Well, no, probably not if they're willing to put in the money, because I do think one of the problems with the shows is they don't live up to the grandiose feel of the movies, and a lot of people think of Star Wars as a sort of event, right? Star Wars is not a casual, small story on the little screen. It is a massive story, a big, earth-shattering event on the big screen. And so, yeah, I do think it can potentially be harmful if the live action shows just don't live up to that feeling. And a lot of people want that feeling. They want Star Wars to be this big event, not a weekly show that has, yes, a large budget, but doesn't exactly give you that look and feel of a movie. And so, to stop myself from rambling here and get to the point, I do agree that the Star Wars live action shows have more of a downside than a potential upside. I do think they tend to have a way of doing more harm than they could possibly do good. And we do have to keep in mind the whole point of the live action shows from the Disney perspective is to help sell their streaming service. It's not a matter of them like wanting to put really great Star Wars on the small screen. It's them wanting to use the brand or the name to sell a streaming platform and to do it as cheaply as possible. And you could make an argument Star Wars doesn't work well when done as cheaply as possible, that it is all about pushing the boundaries as far as possible, which kind of segues us into our next question, which comes to us from Kaliahu, who asked, Hey Thor, beyond the story elements like Jedi and the Force, the Star Wars films were defined by cutting-edge special effects. It's not easy to push that edge forever, but I'd argue Disney was one of the few companies with the interest and resources to do so. The volume they created for Mando is a prime example of that. But do you think maybe the technology of realism has finally plateaued? Has it advanced past the point of any random sci-fi film can present the same visual quality as Star Wars? That part of the problem Star Wars is having these days is simply not being able to stand out like Avatar did on its initial release. Is Lucasfilm now relying too much on familiar imagery to show us something visually creative, or at least better than their competition? And yeah, I do think we have hit a sort of plateau when it comes to special effects. Now, I'm not saying there is no room for improvement. I'm not saying they can't get better at all. But I think there is such a small margin there that we are so close to pretty much the best you're going to do. Not to mention, we have kind of just seen it all, right? What else are you going to do with a movie that is something we have never seen before? I'm sure there are possibilities, yes. But short of something like holograms or something like that, I'm not sure that the 2D screen with maybe the 3D movie here and there like Avatar did and others try to mimic, I don't know that there's anything you're going to do that's going to simply wow me like, I don't know, like Star Wars did in 1977. Not that I personally was wowed by it. I didn't see it back then. But there were people blown away. And I think the prequels also pushed the boundaries of technology, right? They were the pioneer of the digital revolution when it comes to film, and they pushed CGI to the levels we are now seeing it today. They were the forerunners of that. And so, yeah, I do think we've hit this plateau. I do think any quote unquote random sci fi movie can kind of have the same special effects as Star Wars does if they want to put in the money. And then again, going back to the last question, when you kind of downgrade, when you go to Disney Plus and you don't put in as much money as you need to make it look like a movie, and I'm not saying that's what they should do. I understand how expensive that would be. But when Star Wars looks kind of average on the small screen, there are people who just get turned off by that. There are people who, right or wrong, better or worse, go to Star Wars because they want a massive spectacle, and they don't get that on the small screen a lot of the time, and they don't always get a great story there either, so they're not getting the quality of the special effects or the quality of story, and so they're checking out. And to go back to the first comment, I do agree that, yes, Star Wars is a bit worse for wear for going to the small screen and making the live action shows. I have liked some, I have not liked others, but I do feel it has done more harm than good. All right, let's move on to this question now from Pelican Z, who asked, "Hey Thor, people often talk about decanonizing this or that, but why not do the unthinkable and decanonize the OT? Just continue on as sequels to the prequels. Focusing on Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, and Ian McDiarmid, Obi-Wan doesn't die in Episode 4. I no longer view the Star Wars canon as one developing story. It's done, but alternate takes could be had." And though, honestly here, I don't like your idea of decanonizing the original trilogy at all, I do like your idea of a what-if series. What if the original trilogy was different? What if Obi-Wan doesn't die in Episode 4? What if something happens along the way to change everything? And then you can bring in Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor and whoever else you might want to, certainly an Ian McDiarmid if he's up for it, and do an alternate version of events, a what-if story. And you make it clear that this is just a what-if story. You're not trying to, again, decanonize the original trilogy. I think you might have something on your hands there. I think that would certainly be interesting because it would be extremely unpredictable, right? You could even lean into a darker ending. You could have it where Vader kills Obi-Wan and finds out about his son and turns him to the dark side and converts Leia too, and they rule the galaxy as a family forever or something like that. Again, I really like the idea. I don't know that it would ever be done, but it is a fun one, just as long as you don't actually decanonize the original trilogy. All right, one more question, and it comes to us from Six Runger, who asked, "Hey Thor, I love your content and these lightning response videos. However, I am wondering, when are your stories, theories, and original content coming out?" And that is a very fair question. I do talk a lot about what I want to do, and then oftentimes they never come to fruition. And that is in large part because I'm always trying to do 10 things at once behind the scenes, as well as keeping up on not necessarily daily videos, but about 4 to 5 videos a week I try to put out. And so a lot of the times I just never finish the projects for one reason or another. And right now I'm working on 2 instead of 10. I am kind of putting together this long form video that will delve into every aspect of the Force. I want it to be my kind of comprehensive The Force video, because I have dozens of videos that kind of go into different aspects and argue about how it works and how the Jedi use it and all these sorts of things. And I'm going to try to put that into, again, one kind of big comprehensive video. I am also working on a story, which will kind of have multiple episodes. It is taken from my idea of what would the Jedi do in a certain situation. I have the very first episode written, and I have the whole first season, I guess. Not that I know this is going to be multiple seasons, but I have the whole overall story kind of figured out and written down. It is just a matter of now, how am I going to present this? Because I do want to kind of present it in a more grandiose way. Speaking of pushing the boundaries, I need to push my own boundaries a little, I think. I need to enhance what I have done before with my story videos. They're usually just me kind of talking and some generic images. This time they will, again, still be narrated by me, but I'm going to try to up the artwork a little bit, even if I have to use AI art, which I don't want to do, but it's probably what I am going to do for this first one. And I do want to have maybe some background music and some effects or sounds, and we'll see. We'll see what I can manage to put together. But again, I do want it to be a little more than I have done in the past when it comes to my story videos. All right, and for now then, that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. Tell me what you think of anything and everything I had to say here in response to these questions. Or, of course, ask your own question for a future lightning response video. You start your comment off with, "Hey Thor, ask your question," and I will try to answer it in a future video. But whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.